Hi, I'm James Wilkinson and I've been a travel editor for over 20 years. On this show, we're going to take you to some of the world's most amazing destinations, from the big cities to the great regional areas. We'll go inside some of the world's best hotels, bars, restaurants, galleries, theaters, and much more. Right now, we're in Chicago, and this is Wayfarer. Chicago is one of the world's most exciting cities. It's known for many things, including its deep dish pizza, the baseball team, the Chicago Cubs, its incredible architecture, and its theater scene. Well, 2019 is the year of the theater in Chicago, and it's a really exciting time for this city here, isn't it?
Boy, it's an exciting time. One of the great cultural capitals of the world, Chicago. And what makes us a great cultural capital, among other things, is that we have one of the most vibrant theater scenes in the world. We have 250 theater companies, and it's a year-long celebration.
It's an exciting city when it comes to theater and culture and special events in any case. So to have the year of the theater really putting that back on what is something embedded here in the city.
Yeah, with those 250 theater companies, these are not commercially based theaters, the highest professional level, but they're in neighborhoods, they're in storefronts, they're innovative, they're doing new work all the time. But it's approachable in the sense of that it's not the bright lights of Broadway, but rather it's just the power and necessity of theater in our lives.
So this is where the theater lovers come to go and see theater.
The theaters range in size from very small 20-seat theaters to all the way up to theaters with thousands of seats in them. And as Mark said, the work at every level is just so compelling, so brave, and so wonderful. And in any of these theaters that you go into, you're going to find work that's going to speak to you in different ways. And the range of work ranges from puppetry to spectacle, from musicals, straight plays, dance, all the theatrical forms that you can imagine are present in Chicago theater. Every night in Chicago, you have up to 100 shows to choose from. Anytime that someone would want to come here, there is going to be a show they're going to want to see.
What kind of announcements are you going to be making throughout the year in terms of for the theater industry here in Chicago?
Well, we're about to join Mayor Rahm Emanuel in just a couple hours, and we're going to be announcing over $1 million in new grants coming to Chicago theater. We're going to be doing commissions to Chicago theater to fill our parks. So literally, there's going to be free Chicago theater performances in every neighborhood in the city. And then in our Millennium Park, which is one of the greatest new iconic urban landscapes in the world, every week there'll be a new theater in residence doing something wonderfully wild and capturing everyone's imagination. On the Riverwalk, there'll be theater. On the Art of the Mart and Public Art, the giant new public art installation. Everywhere you look, you're gonna feel the power of theater. It's not just gonna be on that stage, and boy is it gonna be on that stage, but it's literally gonna be present in the lives, in the life of the city during the year.
Obviously taking the theater outdoors, that's a pretty exciting concept to be running throughout the year as well.
One of Mayor Emanuel's great pride is that he created the Night Out in the Parks. So over 2,000 free cultural performances, music, dance, theater, poetry in all the parks. And then this year, in the year of Chicago theater, so much of that work is going to be Chicago theater. So yeah, it's going to be Shakespeare in the park and Ibsen in the park and some crazy, smart-ass improv in the park, and the list goes on. We're the only city with 5 Tony Award-winning theater companies, only Chicago. And so you go to Steppenwolf or Goodman or Court or Victory Gardens, and then you have to go see an improv show. So we're the home of improv and storefront, but then you get out to 2-3 storefront shows. They're everywhere in the city. It's ever changing. We can't pick that show. So for your viewers, when they come, who knows what the hell is going to be showing, but it's going to be damn good.
Yeah.
And so you check it out. It's easy to go to the website, chicagoplace.com, make sense of it, pick what interests you.
So you could come to Chicago 4 times this year and see completely different shows in completely different parts of the city.
In fact, you couldn't do anything but that because it changes so fast. Unlike Broadway, where, for example, Chicago has been playing on Broadway since 1975. There's nothing, we don't think that way. You know, we put up new work, you go see it, and then 3 months later, everything is new.
Chicago's got one of the most vibrant theatre scenes to be found anywhere in the world. A lot of it's thanks to Lou Raisin, who founded Broadway in Chicago some 20 years ago. Let's meet him now. We're here inside the Palace Theatre, one of the many beautiful buildings here in Chicago that plays host to some of the best theatre in the world, doesn't it?
It does. We work hard to make sure that that's the case.
Now, a lot of fun shows have come through this city and consistently come through this city, so it's a very vibrant theatre scene.
You know, we have 250 theaters that make up the League of Chicago Theaters. We're the largest. We are the, you know, we're the monsters of the theater world that have an unquenching appetite for the biggest shows, the best shows that are out there. But the 250 theaters that make up the League of Chicago Theaters, from a 60-seat theater under a viaduct all the way to our venues, give you this gambit of Chicago that, you know, from a commercial standpoint, we're the 3rd most important city in the world for theater behind New York and London. But as far as I'm concerned, there's no other city in the world like Chicago for theater.
Yeah, well, there's not many cities that have buildings like this on the scale of what Chicago has.
And from that standpoint, I think we've got, I'm going to continue to brag, but I think we have some of the best theatrical real estate in the world. If Chicago's audiences go to New York, they're spoiled by what they see here, but by the experience in the Chicago theater from a creature comfort standpoint.
And a lot of these buildings have been around since like the 1920s, and they're amazingly well preserved.
They are. There's been renovations that has happened over the years. A number of these theaters had been shuttered, had been turned into other venues. In fact, this theater that we're in today had a flat floor not that long ago, and it was used as convention space.
Oh, wow.
This was all walled over, and the magnificence of this space wasn't enjoyed by the people in the city until we started Broadway in Chicago.
And if you look at with Broadway in Chicago, tell us a bit about what you guys want to do at the moment with it all.
So Broadway and Chicago are the 5 biggest theaters in the city. We focus heavily on pre-Broadway and long-run shows. The likes of Hamilton, pre-Broadway like The Producers, Book of Mormon long-run shows, Spelling Bee. I mean, we cover the gamut of the major shows. One of the things about the Chicago audience is they love to see new work. They thrive on new work. And one of the reasons that pre-Broadway works so well is we've got a very sophisticated audience who understands what a work in production is.
Yeah.
And that's pre-Broadway in Chicago.
So is there more pressure for productions to come to Chicago, given the audience is such a well-educated theater audience here in Chicago?
It induces them to come in, but at the same time, there's an expense to doing pre-Broadway. As opposed to going straight into Broadway, now you're extending it. And it's done because you want to hone, you want to refine your work. And what we wind up doing is we give with the help of the state, we're able to subsidize those pre-Broadway shows with tax credits to bring them in.
And there's some beautiful buildings here in Chicago that host the theater. Do you have a few favorites out of the 5?
Well, it's, you know, I think everybody that comes in would have their own favorites. Our pre-Broadway producers love the CIBC Theater because it's much more like a New York house. And since they're pre-Broadway, they're heading to New York, they don't want to spoil their actors, they don't want to spoil that stage with something that gives them more luxury than they would have in New York.
Yeah.
From a personal standpoint, the Niederlander Theater, to me, takes you on a journey in the past. And the level of detail in that venue will give you an experience that you'll say, this is really something special.
Yeah, because like we said, you talk about London and New York for the theatre, but again, these buildings are just something else.
They are, and that's part of the experience when you come to theater in Chicago. Can you imagine the floor just being leveled?
How long was it like that for?
For probably 20 years. In fact, this was a convention space.
Yeah.
It was flat floor. The theater I'm going to take you in was playing kung fu movies.
Oh,
the
wow.
theater across the street was a porno house. So the theater district was not here.
Yeah.
The bones were here,
Yeah.
but the magic wasn't here.
Chicago is really well known around the world for its steakhouses, and today we're at one of the best in town called El Che, and I'm joined by John Manion. And John, what a great concept you've got here.
Oh, thanks. It came from just traveling throughout South America, and I grew up in Brazil, spent a lot of time in Argentina as a young cook, and realized that we weren't really using those cooking over charcoal traditions in Chicago. And I thought we could bring this to the Midwest and sort of interpret it to a Midwestern audience. That would be fantastic.
And obviously the Midwest is so incredibly well known for its fantastic meats, particularly steak.
At the end of the day, like we kill it in fine dining and across the board, but it's a meat and potatoes town. It really is.
Certainly is. And given that, a lot of pressure then to make sure you're producing some of the best meals in town?
Well, yeah, but we have this contraption behind me that really allows us to cook proteins beautifully over charcoal with minimal intervention. It's just really, really primal and really natural. So that gives us a leg up, I believe.
Yeah. And doing something a little bit different. I mean, there's a lot of similar steakhouses in Chicago.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a left turn. There are so many great right down the middle steakhouses, like famous steakhouses in Chicago. This is, it pays homage to time spent in South America.
Yeah.
It's really about cooking over fire. So it's a little bit different, yeah.
And what are some of the must-have dishes I've got to order today, John, when I have dinner?
So I think that we have to have grilled oysters, because oysters really benefit from living over charcoal. We're gonna do a couple vegetable sides. It's really important to me in that we are so identified as carnivorous that we do vegetables really, really well and can feed vegans very ably. Yeah. And then we're gonna take a look at a steak or two, and we're gonna do a pareado, which is a just gigantic meat board that is an homage to eating all day Sunday in Argentina.
Coming up on the next episode of Wayfarer.